Hi, this is Amber.
And this is Lisa.
And you're listening to Unexplained Arkansas, a new podcast that explores urban legends, mysteries, and the unsolved in the natural state.
We're just two best friends discussing the unexplained in Arkansas.
Hi, and welcome to Unexplained Arkansas. This is Amber.
And this is Lisa.
And this is the second part of a two-part episode regarding the boys on the tracks.
Yes. Deep breath.
Yes, deep breath. So just to kind of recap, just like a 5-minute recap in case someone didn't listen to the one before, what have we got going on right now?
So what we discussed was Kevin Ives and Don Henry on the night of August 23rd in 1986 in Alexander, Arkansas. Their bodies were discovered after they were hit by a train. And they had been out the night before. It was 4 a.m. when the train hit them. And then what we discussed was the fact that, wasn't really investigated much because it was deemed an accident right away, although the bodies
right from the start.
Like the police were like, accident, and then they did an autopsy, and Dr. Malik, who was the state medical examiner at that time, he said that the boys had smoked the equivalency of 20 marijuana cigarettes, I guess, and that they were basically in some type of marijuana haze and had fallen asleep. Although everyone there on the scene, the train, the engineers that saw it, they were like, everybody questioned this. And so I think we did discuss that the parents fought this and that they did have to go to court to get a second opinion. And when they did get second opinions, it came back that Dr. Malik's findings were crazy. The other people that looked at the testing were like, no, there's no, maybe they smoked too, there was no way. And then eventually they would fight to get a second autopsy, which did reflect that Don Henry had been stabbed and Kevin Ives had been basically beaten to death.
Wow.
He had blunt force trauma to his head. And at the tracks, just a reminder, there was a rifle. The boys had been out hunting, doing some spotlight hunting, so to speak, which is illegal. So they were out, after midnight hunting. So the rifle was found to be beside the bodies on the tracks. So, but still, so the parents this whole time are kind of fighting against the state and really don't feel like anyone's in their corner. The only people at this point that were kind of quote unquote helping the family was the media. Linda Ives was very vocal. She used the media to help her. So there was
I remember that from when I was a kid. I remember that she was on the news stations quite a bit.
Yes. And so there was a lot of just outrage against Dr. Malik. Like a lot of people, in the community and in the state were like, there's no way, which we're kind of going to talk. In fact, we're going to kind of finish. There's more on Malik. There's so much more on Malik.
There's a lot on that.
Yes. He's crazy. He just had, and we'll get into it, but yeah, there's just a lot on Malik. So that's kind of the recap. He did have, the prosecutor that was helping them, a special prosecutor at that time that was helping them was Dan Harmon. So Dan Harmon will come up after we discuss Malik. We'll talk about Dan Harmon and his involvement. But I
wanted to say that this story has outlived so many other, stories and things in the last 40 years. I mean, this one stands out as being very well known. There's a lot of people that think they know what went on, but probably don't.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that have opinions. It's one of those stories that is interesting, but at the same time controversial. And I was really shocked that we decided to do such a controversial one at the beginning of our podcast journey. But on the same beat there, I'm kind of proud of us, because this is a very controversial thing to talk about. However, we're basically just looking at Mara's book. We're looking at the resources from Encyclopedia of Arkansas and things like that. So we're staying on top of our sources, and we're not really venturing out into our own opinions very much. We're just giving our listeners a brief look at what is out there and explain the stories behind the boys on the tracks, which if you are over 40 years old living in Arkansas, you probably know what that means. You know what the boys on the tracks are.
Yes. And we'll kind of, I did listen to the True Crime Garage. They did a 5-part, I believe.
Oh, a 5-part?
They did a 5-part back in 2017. And so I did listen to just a couple of parts just to kind of get an idea of their thoughts on it. And then, like you said, a lot of this is just based on the book, which the book was written in 1999. So there's been a lot since.
Again, let me just say the book was written by Mara Leverett. She's amazing. I've met her. She did a book tour last year, and I got to talk to her afterwards. And she's done a lot of great things for this state. She's a great investigative journalist, and I'm just kind of in awe of her. So if we ever had guest stars, I'd like to try to get her as a guest star. She's awesome. Go. Yeah.
You're a fangirl of her. And she did cover the West Memphis 3, which we will cover another day.
Yes. And that book actually, I think, gets more traction these days.
Yes.
More people have read that one, I think.
Yeah. Definitely.
The Devil's Knot. It's called The Devil's Knot.
Yeah. Especially because of just the whole, oh goodness, so many, it was just very publicized. So yes. So to kind of this, I do have an interesting Malik thing. I have a couple things. So this is back to Dr. Malik. Again, I really want to, he's just an important factor here. But one of the things that happened kind of prior to the boys, and why people, so Malik, during this whole situation, he was very protected by the state. Okay. So he was even given a raise because, people would criticize his work, and basically the state. And when I say the state, I say the Clinton. So Bill Clinton was actually our governor during this time frame. So when the boys were killed, he his governorship was running all through the 80s. He was very popular governor, of course. And, but he is the one that was, his administration was kind of covering, I will say, for Malik, and protecting him. So that kind of the things that were said when people would criticize is that he's overworked and this and that. And he was actually given,
could be true. That part could be true.
It could be true. And he was given a raise, but there was an interesting tidbit. I know you hate that word in Mara's book. So this was interesting to me because I don't know a lot about Clinton's background, and I did not know this about his mother, but Clinton's mother, her name was Virginia, and she was actually a nurse anesthetist in Hot Springs. So she had a company that partnered with the hospitals, and she was, her company and herself, like she would be called in to help out and, do the anesthesia on surgeries. And I'm sure, whatever at that time a nurse anesthetist was allowed to do, maybe some minor surgeries. So there were a couple of instances where Virginia, where the hospitals felt like she was culpable. She came under fire. She was sued. There was a woman that came in, had been in a car accident evidently, and something happened, and it was a minor situation. The lady was fine. They just had to do a minor surgery on her. They expected her to fully recover. Like this was not like a death, situation. However, the woman was, during the procedure, it was said that there was some issues with the anesthesia, and Virginia could not get the intubation correct. And so, long story short, the doctor had to kind of move in and help. And by that time, basically the lady, her lungs collapsed, or she couldn't breathe.
Oh wow!
So yes, so the family, of course, was terribly upset, and the autopsy on this woman ended up going to Dr. Malik, and Dr. Malik ruled that the actual accident had killed the woman.
Oh,
and it turned out the person and because of his quote unquote ruling, it was proposed basically the person that caused the accident ended up, getting jail time, for killing this woman.
Oh, wow.
The hospital and everybody else knew that the woman wouldn't have died from the accident. She died from the procedure. She died from the anesthesia part.
Oh, wow.
So that was a big to-do. And Bill Clinton, Mara just tells about this. She doesn't tell an opinion on this. I think it was kind of alluding to the fact that Dr. Malik maybe did some things or, helped out some people. And that's why he was able to stay as long as he was as a state medical examiner. And I just thought that was a little interesting. Now, Bill Clinton, he would refute that. He would always refute the, connection, basically. And just, he refuted. We'll put it that way. But eventually his mother was, eventually the hospitals in Hot Springs just wouldn't work with her. It wasn't, they were like,
wow.
No, sorry. So she basically had to close down her company because of these incidents that were happening, several incidents that happened just because the hospitals were like, sorry, we can't, it's a liability. It was a huge liability. And she always said it was because that they no longer wanted nurse anesthetists. They wanted the doctor anesthesia, anesthesiologist.
Which could be true. That could be true as well.
That could be true. Yes, definitely. So again, that was mentioned in the book. I thought that was very interesting. And we'll kind of talk about. So the other thing to Malik is interesting. So there was a case, and we will do a whole segment on this. We'll do a whole episode. But one of the cases before Malik was eventually removed from office, and we'll talk about that, was a case called Janie Ward of Marshall, Arkansas. So again, there were a lot of controversial cases with Malik, but Janie Ward is one of them. She was a teenager. She supposedly fell off a porch, and Dr. Malik said, this porch was literally I don't even know if it was maybe a foot off the ground. It was she just fell, and then he said that caused a severe neck injury or whatever. It turned out, and again, I want to go into a full episode, but it turned out later on down the road after, Janie Ward's families, fighting all this and investigating and them having to get second opinions and such, that some of the autopsy photos that he used or showed them turned out that it wasn't even he showed the family some x-rays that turned out to be male. They weren't even female parts. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg for Malik. He just, none of his paperwork added up. I think he would, they would find just a lot of just trouble there, just lots and lots of false items came up on him. And there is an article that discusses some of his other items. So there was an Albright case in 1985. So this is before the boys. So the boys were, in 1987.
Right. So, I just read that, an old LA Times article on that one.
Oh, yes. So this was Raymond Albright. He was 50 years old. He was in Mountain Home, which is kind of in the northern part of our states, what we call the the Ozarks, like the mountainous part of the state. It's beautiful in Mountain Home, by the way. He was found dead in his yard of gunshot wounds. And he had been arrested evidently the night before the charges on theft, but Malik ruled his death a suicide.
Oh,
so
wow.
He had multiple, evidently he had 5 shots to the chest.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking about shotgun.
That's
shots.
That's a lot of shots for a suicide.
And I'm not a gun expert, but
yeah,
I do know that a shotgun, that would be incredibly hard to shoot yourself, but to shoot yourself 5 times.
Yes.
So that agree. So that was one of them. And of course, he's trying to say it's a suicide. And, of course the family's like, are you kidding me? So again, this is why, he already had a reputation by the time the boys, were killed. There was also another case. So this one would have been after the boys. It's called the Malcolm case. Oh, this one was crazy. So listen to this.
Wow. What?
So Andrew Smith, of 59, the police said he shot himself and he was declared brain dead. They took him to the University Hospital in Little Rock. I'm sure that's probably UAMS. And he was on life support, but the life support was withdrawn. A week later, Malik told the officers that the order to end life support was given by a deputy coroner named Mark Malcolm, who had consulted with this Andrew Smith's family. They said that Malik is saying that he was going to rule that Malcolm, the coroner, killed Andrew.
Oh, wow.
So he was going to say it's homicide and it's the coroner's fault. So the police investigating Malik's accusation discovered that the attending physician had used a medical symbol on Smith's chart to show that the life support was ended after the family had been consulted. The director of the health department said Malik apparently had mistaken the symbol to mean without family consultation and apparently had misread the chart. So basically, he accused a deputy coroner of killing
murder
a person because he couldn't read the chart. So again, just another example of his I don't know.
Was he
that's insane.
Could he just not do his job? Yeah, that's exactly the word that I was thinking about.
Yes. It's like, oh my goodness. And then there was a Stevens case in 1990.
Maybe he didn't do the stuff with malice. Maybe he just didn't know what the crap he was doing.
I do have a feeling, and yes, remind me to say something on that. Yes. I think he had no clue. Personally. But the Stevens case on August 18th of 90, so this was a little bit later, a Gregory Stevens, who was 25 years old of Hot Springs, he was fatally shot while he was on the front porch of his home. A prosecutor, Paul Bosson, brought some Ernest Lemons, a parolee, to trial on murder charges. The witnesses said that Stevens had been shot from the street about 40 feet away. When Malik took the stand, he said that Stevens had been shot point blank. And so this kind of stunned the whole situation, kind of ruined their case. And so he had to end up dropping the charges. The prosecutor was angry and blindsided, and sought the opinion of 3 outside pathologists. And each said that Stevens had not been shot point blank. And one said it seemed that Malik had studied the wrong tissue samples.
Oh, wow.
So again, that's aligning with Janie Ward, showing the wrong x-rays. And then a DNA analysis confirmed that either blood samples or the tissue samples that Malik used were from a different corpse. So he basically he was going to court talking about something that wasn't even this person.
So basically, none of this or all of this could have been done just because he had no idea what he was doing. And we had a very inept person in office. How long was he in there? The entirety of the 80s, wasn't it? Didn't he leave right before Clinton became president?
Well, So basically, during this time period, he was in for about 81 to 91. So if you'll remember, Amby, Mr.
don't get
President
that
Bill
nickname
Clinton.
going.
Yeah, AMB. I like it. Mr. Clinton, Mr. President, he was running for president, and he was coming under fire finally, like, for keeping Malik. So, of course, this whole time he has been protecting, he's been, it turned out that there was just several things, really not Clinton's fault, but really, I mean, Clinton is being governor is in charge. It's kind of like he may not have known, but he was over
in charge.
The whole,
yeah,
he was in charge. So he had the right, but it turned out there was supposed to be a special committee to hire Malik. It turned out that special committee did not hire Malik, and that Malik, it turned out, did not even have the accreditation that he actually needed. They found out later that to be the state medical examiner, because he had been like,
I could have guessed that.
I know he was like an assistant to the other one. And so, long story short, basically this committee that was supposed to be over this, they didn't even know that they still had a committee. And of course, everyone's passing the buck. They're like, well, it's supposed to be a committee. Well, we can't remove him now because the committee didn't hire him. So it's just one of those, I think it was just one of those bureaucratic problems that basically it was so muddled and so confused that no one even knew how Malik was there. They just knew that he didn't need to be there. And then finally, he started to become a really big problem for President Clinton, because people were questioning, reporters and everybody, the state were like, you need to, why didn't you do something about Malik? And of course, he did not want Malik to be a problem. So what ended up happening is they ended up making a position in around 1991. They basically moved Malik into the Arkansas Health Department. They made a position for him. Now they did, this whole time.
They gave him a pencil pushing job.
They surely did. So they put him and basically they kind of covered up the whole mistake. They moved him into the Arkansas Health Department under some title. And they did end up giving, he did take a pay cut. He did take a pay cut because this whole other time they were increasing the salary on the state medical. But supposedly their argument for increasing the state medical thing was so that they could get the salary up to a point where they could get someone good to come in. That was their.
Oh, okay.
And that could be very true. They're trying to build up the salary base because they knew what they were going to do was to move Malik out. And I will say, we've all worked for. It gets very difficult to, I don't know if it's especially government, to get people out.
It's difficult to maneuver through bureaucracy especially when you have somebody that really doesn't need to be in the position, but you're not in any position to get rid of them. Yeah, I mean, that's just bureaucracy sometimes for you in any way, shape, or form.
And I think that's human nature, because I've seen it even in the private sector. It's like, oh, well, they were doing a really bad job, so they just kind of moved them.
Yeah, no,
they didn't.
Yeah,
they didn't fire them, but they moved them.
Yeah, that happens.
And I do think it's because, and I do think we don't want, we feel bad. I think from my perspective, sometimes you just feel bad. You don't want that person to get fired. You don't want them to, basically he was put into a position that he shouldn't have been in.
Right. And that all could have been true. That could have been, so that could have been a big part of all these crazy rulings, not just that he is doing all this maliciously, but that he has no business being in that position. So I don't know, but this sounds like a great book. This sounds like somebody needs to write this book. And I looked to see if someone,
book.
to see if someone had written about this, but no one's written about it. So, wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that and I did look, Dr. Malik did end up moving to Florida. He did pass, it looked like in 21. So he did pass away in that time frame, it looked like. So we'll go. So that wraps up, at least for this part of the Dr. Malik stuff, but it was a lot. I mean, he's a lot of it. And again, I do want to explore the Janie Ward, but that will be, we will do an episode. Yes. That has already been covered by a Hell and Gone podcast host, Catherine Townsend, which is really interesting. And she does a lot of Arkansas cases. She is from Arkansas. She does not live currently in Arkansas, but she is from Arkansas. So it's a very interesting podcast. So Hell and Gone, look for that.
Nice.
A little plug for It's her. And then
maybe someday someone will plug us. You know, say, hey, listen to those girls at Unexplained Arkansas. They're so funny.
They are funny, and they really like their fast food.
Yes.
Follow us for all your fast food needs. So I do want to go into Harmon. So remember Dan Harmon. So he actually approached the family. He approached Linda Ives, and he was an attorney there, and he offered to help her. Okay. So at that point, early in this whole procedure, like Dan Harmon, Linda Ives loved Dan Harmon. He was, he really helped her. I mean, he got the ball rolling. He was the one that did the grand jury to try to even get the boys' deaths as a homicide, a probable homicide. So he was instrumental in all of that. I will say,
I have a question. So right now, what is it? Is the case open? Is it, what are they labeling the case? Homicide, accident?
I was told, I tried to call the Arkansas State Police. You can imagine how that went. So I did reach, I got a message.
Did you get
I left a message.
Elevator music.
Yes. I did leave a message. So who knows, obviously if I get a phone call back,
so we don't
kind of do a follow-up.
We don't know
I was told it's open.
Okay.
Yes, I was told it's open. And according to items that I had found, it was like most of the investigation was either done by the FBI or the Arkansas State Police. So, and we'll kind of get to that. Sorry, my headphones, it's like these earbuds are bothering. I need
to get these big old headphones like I wear.
Yes, I do. So I'm trying to, okay. So we talked about Don Harmon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Dan Harmon.
Dan Harmon, yes. Dan, what did I say?
You said Don. Dan. Yeah.
Don. Sorry, it's Don Henry and Dan Harmon. I'm getting confused. So anyway,
in a minute you're going to say Don Henley, and then
Don Henley. Yes, Don Henley. Who's Don Henley again?
He's in the Eagles.
The Eagles?
Yeah,
okay, yeah. He had that. What is that? The Bullies of Summer? I don't know. Is that him?
I think so. Don
Did
Henley
you hear
had
that?
several. Did I hear what?
Oh my goodness!
What's wrong?
There was just a really big sorry. I don't know. It's
a really big sorry. What's a big sorry?
There's a really big noise outside. I think
didn't hear it.
People do shoot guns around here, around my house. That sounds weird.
And especially since we're talking about controversial subject. Okay, so moving on, onward and upward.
Onwards and upwards. Okay, so Dan Harmon was instrumental, of course, in helping, but it kind of turns out that Dan Harmon, and sorry, I had some notes, and now I can't find them, and I'm mad. Like I had all my notes. Bear with me, okay?
I'm going to play the elevator music now.
Okay. Okay, there it is. So Dan Harmon, he ended up being the prosecutor for the state. So at first he was just an attorney, and he was kind of like, homegrown. He was like kind of no nonsense people, like, it was just Dan. That's just his way. Like he was kind of
just
gruff. Just Dan. Like evidently he was gruff and tough, and people elected him to be their prosecutor, and they liked that he was.
I've never met a Dan I didn't like. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of all the Dan. Yeah, there's a lot of Dan. Yeah. I mean, most of the time you're like. I had a friend named
Fun Dan in college. So
I'm not
even sure why we called him Fun Dan.
Was he fun?
Yeah, he was. He was a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, that's why. He was Fun Dan. But this Dan, he had a lot going on. And of course Linda liked him, but he liked the ladies. It seemed like he was always getting married and then having marital issues, getting divorced,
Nice.
And then more stuff came out to where it was kind of like he liked, some drugs, but he was kind of head of the drug task force, so that was kind of a problem.
Oh, so, nice. We're not getting into cocaine bear territory, are we?
A little bit. So evidently he was
worst movie that we've seen.
Oh
well,
my
I
gosh.
say that. I don't know if it was. I don't know. It was different. It was okay.
Cocaine Bear was awful. We were literally, we almost walked out, and you know it. Like,
yeah,
that was bad. And I will tell you, I have since, in the last couple days, watched an even worse movie. And do not go see this movie. No, it's called Saltburn.
Oh.
And do not go see it. Do not go see it. I'm telling you, like,
right,
I'm sorry.
I promise.
No. Like, it was repulsive, disgusting. The only good thing about it was the acting was good, but it was very like, okay, Paris just walked in here. Scared me.
I heard tippy toes.
Did you hear? Yeah. It was just very, it was disgusting. There are scenes in there that I wish that I could like never see. Like, I want to like wash my eyeballs like out. Anywho, but cocaine was like that too. It was terrible. It was like, oh my goodness. So
it was a little too campy, and I was expecting a lot more from the director, who was a woman, and I don't know.
Yes. It was. Yeah.
1.5 stars. And 1.5 stars, and I'm only giving the extra half because they put Kerry Russell in it. Love Kerry Russell.
I like her too. Yeah. And that one had good acting. Cocaine Bear had good acting. Saltburn had good acting. I would say that's where the movies end as far as being good. And both were hard to watch in different ways, like very different ways. But so basically, Dan Harmon. So he is calling all. So he does this. He's trying to get the boys. Sorry, I'm watching your face.
What? I'm looking with interest and intrigue. This is intrigue. No,
you're not. Okay, that's your intrigue. Okay, so he is calling a lot of witnesses. I mean, we're tons of witnesses, and he's trying to get the boy when he's working with a grand jury. Okay, so the interesting thing about this, and I'll get into witnesses, is that a lot of these witnesses end up either being incarcerated or they end up being killed.
Ooh.
Okay. Yes.
That sounds very controversial.
It's very controversial. There, like a Keith McCaskill, a Greg Collins. There was several. A Danny Booney Bearden.
And all of these have been very well documented.
Yes, they've all been documented. And I won't kind of get into nitty gritties, but all of these people were called into by Dan Harmon to be prosecuted, or not prosecuted, but to be witnesses. And then all of these people within a couple of years of this were dead. Like one guy ended up, his body was in a landfill.
Oh,
another guy ended up with shotgun blast to the face. Another one was just beaten to death. And
so these were horrendous deaths. These weren't natural causes.
These were horrendous deaths. And what the deal was, the biggest thing that everyone is saying during this thing is that the boys were allegedly killed because they were killed, but because of
allegedly
they came upon a drug situation.
And this is allegedly.
So allegedly, and this is from the witnesses. This is what's happening. Okay. So all of these people were allegedly involved or knew drug dealers in the area. Okay. So this is kind of, the whole thing is kind of, drug, filled, you've got the drugs, you got the money.
That's always been talked about. I mean, that yes. aspect of this case is very well documented, very well known. Yes. We're not uncovering anything that is new. This has been a very well documented case, especially in the last 10, 15 years. And
yes.
how
and even
may possibly relate to some illegal behavior.
Yes, which leads us kind of into what we call the Mina connection. So I really, Mina, there was an individual called Barry Seals. So Mara in her book goes into great detail about Barry Seals, Mina, the Iran-Contra affair. Like Linda Ives, her position, she really did not like Barry Seals. So Barry Seals was a pilot. He was, I guess, originally from Louisiana, and it's documented he was running drugs. Okay.
So a cocaine smuggler.
Yes, I believe it was probably cocaine was the big thing. And if you watch Cocaine Bear, which was loosely based
I'm
on
really getting some Cocaine Bear vibes.
Yeah, it was truly based on a true story, but it even talks about planes flying the drugs in and the drugs being dropped, right? Okay.
Right.
So that's what Barry was doing. Okay.
So before we go any further, let me say that there is a book that Mara wrote called All Quiet at Mina, which would probably be be a good sequel to the one you just read about the boys on the track. So she did write about
Mina,
as she says, the notorious cocaine smuggler Barry Seal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's in her book. This book went deep diving into Barry Seals, because basically Barry was smuggling drugs. His operation was out of Louisiana, where he was from, but then he knew that people like the Louisiana state, the DEA, all of them were onto him. And so then he moves his operations into Mina. Mina, Arkansas was 120 miles to the west of Alexander, Arkansas, where Kevin Ives and Don Henry were killed.
Right.
Okay, so it was to the west, but of course the drug smuggling is going into like Colombia, like he was working with those major drug lords down there. Okay,
allegedly.
Well, that is documented. I will say,
I just keep putting allegedly in there. Allegedly, I'm going to have a little
supposedly, evidently.
Well, allegedly, as a journalist, I use that word all the time.
And this one, and Barry Seals, so, he's running the drugs out of Mina, okay?
Allegedly.
So that's what's allegedly running the drugs.
Now I'm just going to start saying it.
And there is a movie. So I actually watched this movie, like, before I even read...
Cruise one?
Yes, before I even read The Boys on the Tracks, me and Daryl had already seen it, but he was like, "Oh, this movie's pretty good." It was on the Netflix, and it was called American Made, and it was like from 2017. And I watched that, and then I've dived in. So basically, it shows Tom Cruise, working with the CIA as Barry Seals, because they were on to his operation. So, but then the CIA wanted to utilize these operations to get guns into South America to try to help, basically, long story short, to get guns to Iran because of that. So, our government, we, try to help out other countries. And so we were trying to get guns to help Iran in their civil wars going on in the Middle East. Everything almost always goes back to the Middle East, sadly. So, as we all know, tons of fighting going on. But so eventually, Barry Seals' operation, he is allegedly approached by the CIA. He's helping out the CIA. He's also helping out himself. So he was boasting about making, we're talking not millions of dollars, but billions of dollars. So he is making billions of dollars moving drugs, a lot of drugs, into our state. So basically he would fly these drugs and drop them. Okay. Mm-hmm. So these drugs were being dropped, and Linda Ives felt... Okay, yeah. So Linda Ives and Mara is writing about this, felt like the boys came up on a drop. Okay. So now I will point this out. So eventually Barry is convicted in Florida. Like, he gets in trouble finally. The CIA can only cover him so much. I believe Arkansas tried to get to him. Louisiana, but finally he is in trouble, and Barry Seals is actually, I guess, on probation, going back and forth at a halfway home in February of 1986, and he is contract killed. by a cartel. Okay. So this was 86 and the boys were killed. This is February of 86 and the boys were not found dead until August of 87. So in the book, I do believe that there was probably still drops, but it felt like Linda was really narrowing in on Barry Seals specifically, but Barry Seals had been dead for quite some time by the time the boys were dead. So not to say Barry Seals was a good person. He definitely wasn't. He was self-centered, obviously about the money and the drugs, and he did a lot of bad things. But he also had, he turned and had to help out the CIA. Otherwise, he was going to jail. So I will say, I find this offensive. I'm going to tell you something I find offensive, though, about this. And this is not imperative to Kevin or Don's situation. But Barry Seals was labeled as El Gordo, the fat one. And in the movie American Made, he's played by the tiny Tom Cruise.
The tiny Tom Cruise.
So I have offense to the fact.
Tiny Tim? It is Christmas.
Yes. He's a tiny man. He's like, what, 5'6",
I don't know.
150, maybe 140.
He's not a big dude. He's not big.
He is a tiny man. So I find offense to Hollywood, okay? They're always saying that they want to be true to their craft, but yet Tom Cruise is playing El Gordo.
Well, they took some creative liberties with that one, apparently.
They certainly did. I mean, why wouldn't they get at least like Russell Crowe, who's clearly not tiny, or someone, not tiny to play that part? Anywho, maybe Russell Crowe is busy, but I take offense as a full-figured lady to someone. You know what I'm saying? I take offense. I do not want to be played by someone like tiny.
I don't know. I might.
You shut your face. So anyway, that to me, the book went into a lot. I mean, we're talking chapters and chapters on the Mina. And I will say,
interesting.
I listened to the True Crime Garage guys, and they cracked me up because I don't know where they're from, but they were saying Mina.
Wow.
Saline County and Mina.
In Mina.
So if you're from Arkansas, it's Saline County and it's Mina.
Mina. Yes.
So that was cracking me up listening to them. I was like, dudes, where are you from? Who'd you talk to? So anywho, that's kind of the Barry Seals thing. We talked about, again, the missing people that surrounded the investigation. So, I mean, obviously something was going on. Obviously the kids came onto something, right?
They may have. Yeah, they may have.
I mean, definitely. And definitely there were drugs. We know that there was drugs running really all over the state. I'm sure all over the country. We had issues back in the 80s and 90s, like here in White County.
Yeah, of course.
So
my whole thing
there's a lot going on.
There is. And the way that they were laying, I mean, even if you were in a drunken stupor or drug-induced haze, we just say, oh, look, there's some railroad tracks. Let's go lay down on those side by side.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I find it very hard to wrap my mind around that.
And we talked about how, Kevin Ives, his dad worked for Union Pacific.
Yeah.
Like he knew train safety. I'm sure his dad drilled that into his head.
Of course.
You don't walk on tracks. Even if you're driving over a track, you have to be super careful.
Yeah. So I've always been super uncomfortable around railroad tracks. I don't know why. I can't. I don't know. I always roll my windows down, turn the radio completely off, and then look both ways. And I've taught my son who's driving now to do the same thing. No matter who he's with or what he's doing, roll all the windows down, turn the radio off, because you just never know.
Yes. I mean, not too many months ago, there was a family, it was a dad and I think 3 of his kids got hit by a train. He was, evidently, I don't know the circumstances of why, but evidently 2 of his kids were killed,
that's
because
so terrible. But it happens
terrible.
every once in a while, unfortunately. And I remember it happening quite a bit back in the 80s and 90s. But I think hopefully technology has gotten a little better as far as, railroads
the
and this and that, the trains. But I don't know. It's just, it's one of those things you have to be very, very careful with here in Arkansas. Well, anywhere, but
yes,
yeah,
definitely. So we still, okay. So there were several people. There was a Charlene Wilson character, okay, that's kind of big in this case. She actually, there were some people that came forward that said that they saw the boys on the tracks being beat up, and allegedly by police officers and Dan Harmon. So
what?
there were several.
Whoa,
yes,
what?
The prosecutor. Yes. So yes.
That's in Mara's book.
Yes, this is in Mara's book. So
wow.
Mara discloses that kind of, and again, her book was 99, so it seemed like a lot of these people coming forward, there were a couple, but Charlene Wilson was one of them. Charlene Wilson was and is convicted drug dealer. Okay, so a lot of these people were related into the drug trade. Okay, and as you know from other cases, eyewitnesses are always deemed, not credible sources always. It's always about getting the evidence of what they saw. You can't always go by an eyewitness.
Well, because it's somebody's perspective. Yeah.
And especially when there's, a history of drugs in their background, a lot of juries will not find an eyewitness credible. Okay. So, but I'm here to say there were several people that actually came forward and said that they saw Dan Harmon out on the tracks. Okay.
Oh,
that
wow.
he did
that
something.
Is crazy.
And this is the man that had come forward to help Linda Ives and to help the Henry family.
And he passed away this year, it looks like.
He did. Yes, he did pass away. Now, I will say after all that, Linda Ives at first was a big component, big supporter. But there were, as things continued and got away. So Dan Harmon, after he got the boys, at least he got their deaths shown as probably homicides. That's kind of where his work ended. Nothing else ever really transpired. Linda had to always fight to get, private investigators or other people to investigate. The FBI did eventually, quote unquote, take over the file, and the Arkansas State Police had taken over the file to investigate. But it seemed like every time, Linda thought something would happen, it would be shut down. Okay. So I think the FBI came back and was like, there's just not enough evidence. We don't have a suspect. We don't have anyone to prosecute, basically, because, and a lot of this that's going on is that people that quote unquote saw something are dead. So there's obviously, it's just riddled with craziness. It's just bizarre.
There's a lot of unknown factors still to this day. However many years, how many years has it been?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that was 35. So.
Yeah. 35-ish, give or take. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and so, yes. So I will say on the Dan Harmon thing, okay? So eventually, and Dan Harmon was implicated in a lot of things during his situation as prosecutor. Eventually,
like
Dan
I've been looking through his resume here on my phone.
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds like he had a lot of things going on there.
He did, he finally, after many, many years of people coming forward and trying to kind of, show what a, not great guy he was, he did eventually get prosecuted, and he got convicted, of basically RICO. It was like, racketeering. He was basically taking money, he was extorting money from people that were in trouble, and so that he wouldn't prosecute them. So he did end up serving 8 years in prison, and of course,
oh wow,
losing his ability to be an attorney, like lost his whatever that is. It was revoked. His right to practice law. So
As
So
it should be.
was, yes. So eventually, and that happened like in 1997. So he was actually convicted. So it says that he was convicted of racketeering, conspiracy, extortion, drug possession with intent to distribute. Distribute. Oh my goodness.
Distribution.
Yes.
I don't know, but it seems like there's more written about Dan Harmon than Malik. Actually, as I take just a little dive into Google,
there is a lot about Harmon. He had a lot of, it's weird because, of course, again, he helped them, but then he had all this other going on. There were several people that said that he himself were on the tracks. There's a lot of alleged, speculation that he was involved in the boys' deaths himself. So it's just very convoluted. And of course, I think Linda Ives and the Ives family, and I think they were happy when he finally went to jail, because if he did have any involvement, they were happy that he did face justice. But just the fact that he was the prosecutor, prosecutor in the state, so he was out there doing all these terrible things.
So we have the coroner who at best had mismanaged the department, but at worst was doing things he shouldn't, right? So that's allegedly. And then we have the prosecutor, same thing. Wow. Wow.
Yes. I mean, all of these
poor mother, that poor mom.
I know.
So whatever happened to Linda Ives?
So up until her death, which she did pass away, sadly, she passed away in 2021. So she has passed, but up until her death, she was advocating not just for her boys' cases, but across the state. She would help out different cases. She was still fighting. It said that she had filed a new lawsuit with the Freedom of Information Act to try to get this, what she called the stonewalling, just information. Because I will say there is a website which we will post. It's called like I think it was one of her relatives that actually started the website way back, and they still have some information on it. It's kind of muddled information, but I think there's still information. But it does have documentation, I guess, that she had received. So we have, I looked at myself, 200 pages of documentation that the FBI had released. It looks like a lot of it was between the FBI and the Arkansas State Police, but a lot of the information is blacked out. So it doesn't show you everything. So
because it's still, if it's still under investigation, then they don't have to release very much of anything.
Yes. And I do believe
go ahead.
I had tried to call the state police, and I did talk to, I have a friend here, a detective here in Searcy. So I did reach out and asked him if he thought that it was an open case, and he believed that it was. And his wife is also in law enforcement. I'm supposed to get with her. She has some information about it, but he believed it is still an open case.
Right. Well, when I worked at a police department, a long time ago, after I was a journalist for a while. And then I worked in public relations for a police department. That was a tough job, but I do know if a case is under investigation, there is not a lot to be released. And all you have to do is pretty much say, hey, it's under investigation.
But the sad part is when it's been so many years and no one's working on it. So that was where Linda Ives' position was. It was like, she just, she was filing lawsuits to get people to give her the information, get information from the U.S. attorneys, the DEA, the Department of Homeland Security, all their private documents. She was trying to get, that. And I will say that the latest it says on it, it said the lawsuit was dismissed in 2019. So I will tell you this. So this is bizarre, real fast. So in 2018, and I don't know this person. I don't keep up with the World Wrestling Federation, but there is a
what? Yes. I don't think it's called the World Wrestling Federation anymore. I think it's WWE. No, it hasn't been WWF in a long.
He said former. He was former, so he was part of the WWF. But it said in February of 2018, a former WWF wrestler, Billy Jack Haynes, he came forward and he recorded a video. testimony in which he claimed to have witnessed the murders of Kevin Ives and Don Henry while providing security for the drug trafficking drop in 87.
What?
Yes. So this happened, and I will say, I could not find any other information. I mean, there is nothing out there to support this claim. I think from what I could tell, people thought he was not with it. Like, people dismissed his claim.
Huh.
Because there is nothing else on that. Like, nothing. Absolutely nothing else on that. It's like all the news coverage happened in 2018.
Wanted 5 more minutes of fame, so he just picked a random case that he could be. Yeah, okay.
Yes, according to him. So according to him, he was there. And evidently, he had actually called Linda Ives and like said, he didn't say that he was responsible for necessarily the deaths, but basically that, the boys had witnessed something. He, basically they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, which I totally believe.
Yeah, I believe that.
And, yes. And that they were, it got out of hand and they were killed, and then they were placed on the tracks to cover up the murder. And then there we go. So he actually talked to her. I think it was nice of him to do that, but she was still trying to, you can clearly, I don't know if she believed his story, because clearly she was still trying to get information. She was still involved in her lawsuit. So I don't know if she believed Billy Haynes or Billy Jack.
It's Billy Jack.
Because Billy Jack. But evidently no one else believed his claims either.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So this happened in 2018, which was actually after the True Crime Garage Dudes thing. So theirs was in 2017. So they wouldn't have even, I don't know if they've done a follow-up or whatever. So this came out after. And then, of course, Linda Ives, had passed away in 21. So again, currently the case is probably open. Currently, it's probably, the sad part is probably not going to be solved. In fact, the attorney for Linda Ives said, after her passing, he said, I'm just thankful that now she knows. Yeah. So now she knows what happened to her son. And I will say there was just some, yes, it's incredibly sad. And Linda had talked about, I did see this, it was like a film of her, and she talks about how, Kevin was so sweet, such a sweet boy, and that one of the things she said that really touched me was that he really liked old people. Like, he was really like nice to the elderly, like in tune with them. And that, he was a teenage boy. He was 17 years old. So that in itself how many 17-year-olds are really kind to old people?
Nobody's kind to me. No, I'm kidding.
You are not the elderly, although you act like it.
Yes, I do.
But yeah, no one's kind to middle-aged ladies.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he was very kind. And someone said after one of her good friends, Karen Spears, that was a good friend of Linda, she said that Linda was an amazingly strong woman. She never gave up her fight. She wanted justice, and she was going to continue until she could no longer go on. And that's exactly what she did. She just fought this. Some people handle this in a different, her husband, Larry, he handled it differently. He was quiet. Mm-hmm. He just wanted, I think he just missed his son. He just wanted it to go away. Type thing.
I think we saw that in like the West Memphis 3 case, how each of the parents handled it differently. Yes. Yeah. So, but it sounds like she was a very brave woman. Like
Don Henry's parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
it sounds like she was a very brave woman, and she didn't care what people thought. She just wanted to get to the truth. Wow. Which is a great way.
She was going to fight.
And that's a great way to end it, because, I really feel like that it was the mom that kept this out there, that kept people talking about it. And
definitely.
Definitely.
It would not, it would have just, gone away if she hadn't persevered.
She deserved the truth. And I'm so sorry that she did not get that in her lifetime.
Yes. It is sad. And it's sad. Okay. So, and we've seen this over and over again. It's greed, and it's corruption, and it's powerful people in powerful places doing, things that they shouldn't. And so the True Crime Garage people, their outlook on this was they kind of thought, I felt like they kind of thought that Dan Harmon was responsible. I guess they were really thinking that the eyewitnesses, there was some smoke there, so to speak, that he was involved or whatever. And then, of course, Linda thought that the Barry Seal, she kind of, that was very in the book, okay, about the Barry Seals connection and all the drug running, which definitely there was the drug running, definitely the drug drops. But to me, I mean, I don't know. My opinion on this is there was drugs in the area. The boys were out late at night. There was definite things going on. I can't imagine that Dan Harmon would be out there at between 1 and 4 in the morning killing these boys. That's hard for me to believe. I do think that there was people. I think the boys were definitely not intended to get killed. I think they were in the wrong place, wrong time, and things got out of hand, and they were killed and put on the tracks because they thought, oh, they're going to run over their bodies and think it's an accident, which is exactly what happened. But I personally cannot imagine Dan Harmon getting his hands that dirty, quote unquote.
Right.
I don't think he was there that night. I think people put him there because they didn't like him, and he was not good. He was definitely involved in a lot of things that he shouldn't have been. But I guess from my perspective is we don't know who was there that night. The eyewitnesses were all not really, I don't know. They would never have been even called in to be in a jury. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a jury would not have been like, I don't know. Not happening. So anyway, do you have any questions?
No, not really. But
or additions?
I did want to mention that we will have links to all of Mara's books, and you can order her books on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever, but we will provide links to all of the books and all of our information, references, all that will be included.
Yes. We'll link it up, people. So, and we do have a little bit of business because Ambro there, starting that one, Ambro, she's going to tell you about what she's been busy doing. We are on the platform. Tell them the platforms, people.
Well, we are now on Amazon Music. We are on, what else are we on? iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts.
Yay! And of course, Spotify.
Of course.
Which you're listening.
Our home, Spotify.
Our home, Spotify. And so again, we really appreciate you listening. This was a lot. This was a big one. There will be some fun. There will be some weird. There will be some ghosts. There will be some goblins.
Yeah.
Goblins, ghosts. Are those the same?
We're going to try to shake it up. I'm not sure what we're going to do next week. There's a couple we're talking about doing. So, whatever it is, it'll be fun. And we appreciate you guys listening to us. And as always, please rate us. Please leave comments. And we will see everybody. Or I'm sorry, we will.
we will not see everyone.
We won't see everyone. Well, we will see everyone on this side of Christmas is what I meant. So we're about to go into the Christmas holiday.
Oh, we have, what is today?
Today's Saturday.
Tomorrow's Christmas Eve.
Yes, and tonight we're doing our gift exchange, remember? Yes. So we will have that on our Facebook.
We're going to film it, you said?
Yes.
We need to do a Reels. We're going to do a Reels. Okay. But yeah. So two days to Christmas, people. Okay. We love you.
Oh, we love you. Yes, we do. All right. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Oh.